Most people who know me would say I'm a very forgiving and gracious person. And now I am, but only after learning the hard way. I made some decisions in life that kept taking me further and further away from God. I was a pretty good kid. I got most of my attention by doing the right things, studying hard and learning all my Bible verses, trying to stand out by doing the good things. And when I was young, about 7 years old, I went to the altar and I said a prayer. But there were some confusing things that happened after that. First of all, I would say nothing really changed in my life. And I kind of expected there to be change even at that early age. Second, I was taught that you could lose your salvation if you sinned. And I did. So I got saved and baptized over and over and over again. I kind of gave up on that before I got to high school because, your mind just starts thinking, questioning things, and I thought if a God isn't strong enough to keep me saved, then maybe he doesn't have power to save me in the first place. Like I said earlier, decisions have consequences, and by turning my attention away from God in my high school years and onto myself, I lost focus. And when I went to college, I had good goals as far as the world thinks, but I got into a big school after coming from smaller school districts and being kind of protected in that way, and got caught up in going to the disco and had friends that partied, friends that didn't, went to the disco Thursday, Friday night, Sunday morning I was in church with my other friends. And that was kind of a habit because we had always gone to church. So I was still hearing the Bible, but it wasn't really penetrating my heart. Also in that time, I started dating, and I put too much trust in man and in myself, and I found myself pregnant my second trimester in college. That didn't fit in with my goals of finding security and financial stability and having an education. It also didn't fit in with the goals of this young man, the father, or his parents. My boyfriend's parents paid for the abortion. And the school nurse is the one that recommended the clinic for me. Only it wasn't a counseling clinic like she had said, it was an abortion clinic. And there was some pressure there. I was told that I was near the end of the first trimester of the pregnancy, so I only had a few days to make the decision. I didn't look for counsel anywhere else. I just kind of shut down and determined I was going to keep going towards my goals. Those are hard decisions to look back on, because I'm sure, and I know in my heart, that God was calling me to make a different decision. And our decisions have consequences. That was the worst day in my life, ever. And since then I've lost my husband. And to look at the comparison, I would say that's still the worst day in my life. By the time I met my husband, I was kind of stable emotionally, and we were near the end of our schooling. he took a job over closer to where my parents lived, and we moved that direction, and I finished school at Hope College. By this time, I wasn't going to church at all. That was another thing that changed after my abortion. I believed in my heart that that was the unpardonable sin in my life because of how I knew God, and I believed he would never forgive me for that decision. But when I was at Hope College, a friend of ours who ended up being my advisor invited us to visit his Baptist church, and we did. And I would say probably I had heard the gospel before. I know I had read the Bible before, but for the first time, I was in a place where my heart was broken enough that God's word penetrated, and I was softened, and I heard that Jesus died and took my sin of abortion to the cross, as well as all the rest of the sins in my life, and that his forgiveness was permanent, and that nothing could take my salvation away. And I just burst out crying, bawling. It was a newfound freedom, and probably the best decision that I ever made in my life, to surrender to that. I felt called into counseling ministry and did training for biblical counseling to be a lay counselor at my church. That was going really well. I was blessed to work in that ministry and meet lots of women who had hurts in their lives and help them look into God's word to find answers and healing. After a few years of that, though, I hit kind of a dry spell, and I didn't know where it was coming from. So I took some time off counseling and was trying to refresh myself in the word and in prayer. Just figured I needed a break. And it was at that time that I saw in the bulletin at church an announcement for a small group Bible study for post-abortive women. It was called Binding Up the Brokenhearted. And it tweaked my heart, but I just kind of hid from it and shoved it back down because, again, I thought, I've already taken care of that. I don't need to go into that study. That's for other people. Well, about 3 months later, there was another announcement in the bulletin for the same Bible study. And it was as if a still small voice said to me, "This is the roadblock. You need to do this." I had been a Christian for 25 years at this time, and I had been serving in counseling ministry with hurting women for probably 7 to 10 years. And God still had work to do in my heart. My story became his story, which it truly should have been all along if I had ever fully surrendered to him in the beginning. And I'm just very blessed that this God who I rejected, then received, and then restricted, actually chose to use me to help other women find him in this way. I think maybe the biggest things I've learned is that we are very discontent people with what God gives us, and that develops bitterness in our heart that needs to be forgiven and put aside before he can heal us and use us. And especially here at Calvary, where our goal is to live the cross-shaped life, I think that's the only way we can do it.